All right guys, back in the kayak again today. Got off work a little bit early, made a mad dash home, grabbed all the stuff and ran down here. Really what I'm looking to target today is probably gonna be those smaller size to mid-size slot redfish. And we're gonna do it a little bit different, man. Grew up in Alaska doing the fly fishing thing, and I haven't really done much of it since moving down here, and haven't really done much of it in the saltwater at all. So we're gonna give it a shot today. And we're just gonna pitch some streamers through some dock structure, maybe work some grass flats. We've got like 2 hours of daylight left. Let's see if we can find some redfish. So I'm gonna head on over here to this dock structure and get started. This place was loaded up with little juvenile to mid-slot redfish last weekend, so perfect place to throw some flies. Should be looking at about 6 to 7 feet of water right now with the high tide. So I've got both my 8 weights with me today. I've got one rigged up with floating line, which I think that's what we're gonna start with, and then I've got one rigged up with a 300-gram sinking shooting head, which we can use to kind of dredge bottom if we need to. But I think we're probably looking at about 6 to 7 feet of water right now. Where I'm going to be fishing on this dock structure. So I think the floating line with the sink tip and then using a weighted fly, we should be good. So I'm going to start by throwing what's called a Dalai Lama. This is really like a Northwest steelhead salmon kind of fly. This is what's called a segmented fly. So this is actually 2 separate flies put together in the middle. So you can see that we've got this rabbit zonker strip that runs down the back, and then there's a piece of fluorocarbon in there, 40-pound fluorocarbon, that actually connects the 2 hooks. So we've got 2 Mustad Ultra points on here. I've got that tied on with a loop knot, which is a great knot to use for lure fishing on spinning setups, but it's also a great knot to use on flies if you're doing big streamer fishing and you want to make sure you got that good action. So I've got a 10-pound fluorocarbon leader on there, Yozuri hybrid. So we'll see how that does. The water's pretty murky here, so I don't think we're gonna have really any issues with that. Not really a ton of current right now either. We're kind of right at high slack tide, so this is really perfect to pitch flies here. Kayak's not gonna be moving around too much on us. So I'm gonna get some line out here. Probably gonna be a little rusty. It's been a minute since I've swung big streamers around, but I do just wanna start by pitching streamers up into this dock structure, letting them sink down mid to bottom of the water column, and then just giving them quick pops, pretty much exactly like we would do with working paddle tails or whatever, just doing it with the fly rod. And we're on a fish, guys. Literally first cast. Solid fish right here. No freaking way, dude. Oh, that was sick. That was so sick. No freaking way. This is probably going to be a juvenile redfish here, but there are hybrids running around this area too. It's a hybrid. It's a freaking hybrid bass on a fly rod, guys. First cast. No way, dude. No freaking way. Get in my net. Yo, that was way easier than I thought it was going to be. Retrieve some of this line real quick here. Dude, that was sick. Now, I was actually, last weekend, came down here with the goal to get my first hybrid bass, and I did not make that happen. We just made it happen. First hybrid bass and first fish in probably like 2 years on a fly rod. Really one of the first saltwater fish on a fly rod for me too. Go ahead and get this guy untangled from the net here. It's a nice little start to the day. Now I am going to get that guy unhooked, but before I do that and potentially drop him in the water, I am going to hop over to Fish Rules and see what the size requirement on these guys is. I do have my cooler full of ice behind me, and I hear that these are really tasty fish actually. So 20 striped bass, white bass, and sunshine bass, which I believe that these are actually called sunshine bass if I remember correctly, which may only be 6 to 24 inches or longer in total. Only 6, maybe 24 inches or longer in total length. Okay. What a cool freaking catch, dude. And you can tell that this is a hybrid bass. They're similar to stripers, but apparently these are a mix between a striped bass, and a white bass. And you can tell the difference between a striper and a hybrid by these stripes that run down the side. You can see these ones right here aren't even. They're kind of distorted all over the place. as compared to these ones on the top, which are just a straight line. Give you guys a look there, a little hybrid bass on the fly rod. Super cool catch. I'm gonna bleed this guy and get him in the cooler. I hear these guys are exceptionally good to eat. Let's get that fly out of him there. All right, pop that fly out of him, and I am gonna gill this fish. He's coming home for dinner. Give you guys one last little look at that hybrid bass, and he's gonna go right in the cooler.
So I ended up fishing around the docks for probably about another hour throwing flies. Didn't get any more bites, so I even tried switching over to spinning tackle, throwing some paddle tails around with some Procure, trying to get some scent in the water, and even tried fishing the spot that was loaded with fish the previous weekend, but I just didn't get any more bites. So we ended the night on only catching that one hybrid bass on the fly and started heading back to the boat launch.
All right, guys, I just got back up to the boat ramp. We didn't really have a lot of usable daylight tonight. Like I said, I worked today, so we didn't get out here until like 3:15, and it's still getting dark this time of year at like 5 o'clock, but we still managed to catch a fish that I've never caught before. Hard fighting fish too, man. If I had to guess, he's probably like an 18-inch fish. Even at that size, man, he just demolished that fly and gave a good hard fight. We're gonna cook this thing up, try something different. These being in brackish water and going out into the salt, I hear that they're a delicious fish to try, so I'm really excited to do this. We'll take it home, clean it up, cook it, and I think it should be pretty good, guys. Alrighty guys, back in the kitchen. There's our little hybrid bass. Beautiful little fish there though, guys. I'm super stoked about this. Like I said, this is the very first one of these I've ever caught. Definitely the first one that I caught on a fly, so that makes it just that much more cool. So we're gonna get this thing cleaned up. We're gonna do some fish tacos tonight. I actually did some fish the other night, so I already have some of the ingredients pre-made for this, so it works out perfect. So this should be pretty straightforward. All right, so of course this being my first one, I've never cleaned one of these before, but I'm just gonna kind of wing it. I think it should fillet pretty much like any other fish. We'll go in right behind that pectoral. It's like that, and then I'm gonna come up and just kind of follow the skull right up to the bone structure on top of the head there. Okay, turn that knife sideways, and then we can just kind of follow that bone structure right down the back. I don't know how thick the bone structure on these guys are. I don't know if it's pretty delicate or what, so I'm gonna just kind of outline that fillet, just trace it right down the back without going too deep, because I don't want to be cutting through bones or anything like that. These guys do have some scales on them though, I'll say that much. We can just pop that back open, start following that bone structure, bending that blade, keeping pressure on it. That way we follow the bones straight down and pull all the meat off of that fish. Get down to the tail, we can kind of just pop that through straight off the back. One thing I like to do too is flip this thing open real close to the tail, right in the middle of the fillet where that bloodline is. Get a good grip on it and just punch that fillet knife through. You can make a little hole there, and the reason that I like to do that is because now I can stick my finger through, and that's going to allow me to control that fish a lot better so it's not slipping around everywhere. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did on the top, just working that fillet knife along that bone structure. Then once we break through into the gut sack there, you guys can see that. I'm gonna come up top, and I'm just gonna work right over the top of the rib cage here and just separate that fillet from the rib cage, just working real gently, not to cut through the bones. Just like that until we meet the skin. We can flop that open and then just work straight down that until we get to the last rib, and then follow that straight down and meet about where the anus of the fish is. And there's our first fillet right there. These guys have a ton of meat on them. That's a pretty thick little cut of meat from such a small fish, so that's really cool. Yeah, we got most of it. I mean, first time filleting one of these, pretty straightforward. I mean, really just like anything else that I clean, same as a snapper or a sheep's head or whatever, but a lot easier without those big guitar pick scales and crazy robust rib cage. But yeah, man, I mean, that's a good looking fish. This is another reason I like having that little hole in the skin towards the tail of the fish. When you're pulling the skin off of it, it gives you something to kind of grip onto, so you can just work that knife all the way down the fillet. I think we might have just a little bit of rib cage right up at the top here, so we'll trim that up just a little bit. So at this point, I like to just work any ribs off there that I left behind. And then I don't know if these have pin bones. I don't actually feel any pin bones, but just to be on the safe side, we're gonna take that bloodline out of there anyway. And for what we're trying to do, we're doing tacos, so little smaller cuts here will probably help us. I've got our pan over here. I'm gonna do this in a cast iron. I've got that preheated with some oil and a whole lot of butter. Give these an ice cold rinse real fast, get all that blood and any scales or anything like that off of there. Just look how white and flaky that fish is though. That's probably one of the cleanest fish I've ever seen. Real pretty meat coming off of this thing. And then we're just gonna go straight in the pan with them. So that should be nice and hot. I've got that on about medium heat right now. Beautiful fillets here. Okay, simple stuff, guys. We're just gonna do some Slap Your Mama seasoning. I'm not gonna do a ton of that. I am gonna season it with some Old Bay as well. And then we're gonna do some smoked paprika. And we're also gonna do some fresh black pepper. This is a pretty standard way that I like to do fish if I'm doing tacos or if we're just gonna eat the fillets as is. So what we're gonna do here is I'm going to use some Duke's mayonnaise as the base for this. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any lemon. That is one thing that I don't have, but I do have something that we can kind of improvise. So I'm gonna put just a little drop of yellow mustard in there. And what I'm gonna improvise for that lemon is I actually have some cabbage that's been soaking in lime and lemon juice here. So we're actually just gonna pour some of that in, and that should do the trick there. Put some of this dill relish, and then I am gonna do a little bit of salt, a little Slap Your Mama in there, pepper, and then of course our smoked paprika. We got to get a little bit of that in there too. Oh yeah, that's good. I like using that Duke's for the base of this. It makes it super tangy. All right, we got our sauce, we got our tortillas. So I'm gonna do some of that that lime and lemon soaked cabbage on there. And then I've got some salsa that I actually made. So this is a salsa that I like doing when I do fish dishes. It's tomato, pineapple, mango, and then it's got some cilantro in there, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, just like a teaspoon of sugar. It's got some onion, and then it's got some lime and some lemon juice in there. This is really good stuff. That sweetness pairs really well with fish. So it's an awesome salsa if you're doing any kind of fish tacos, or if you're just doing like, you know, fresh fish fillets that you want to put some salsa over the top of. It's a really great recipe for that. Get these flipped over here. It's been about 2 minutes. This is a great looking fish here. Also, I don't know if you guys are beer drinkers. I definitely am. Sam Adams, this is that Cold Snap White Ale. I hadn't tried this before. This stuff's really good, man. I like it a lot. It's almost like an IPA. It's got more of like a hoppy kind of thing to it, but yeah, it'll go good with this. I think we're probably about done on here. Let's check it out. Oh yeah, that stuff's just flaking apart in the pan. Very, very flaky fish here. And I like that the like flakes of meat are on the larger side too. That's perfect for doing tacos, because we're gonna flake this apart anyway. I'm gonna have to give this a little quick taste test here and just see how it is. We got more than enough meat here for that. Oh my God. That might be one of the best fish that I have ever had. And I'm not just saying that like for video purposes. Like, that is some good stuff. Babe, come in here and try this. This is really good. That might be within my new top 3. So we'll say like just top 5 in no particular order. Probably redfish, sheep's head, this, hybrid bass, triggerfish, red snapper, / mangrove snapper / vermilion snapper. But this is really good stuff, man. I mean, it's definitely up there with some of the best. Like, really, really great flavor. This is just perfect for this. It's like just the right amount of done to just flake apart perfectly for tacos. Like, it's just falling apart. But I wasn't, for some reason, I was expecting this to be more of a, like a firm flesh. And I mean, it kind of is. It's like, it's firm flakes, but the flakes fall apart from each other, if that makes any sense. All right, that stuff's so good. And I have just enough extra. I'm adding one tortilla left. I guess it was meant to be. So we're gonna add some of that homemade sauce over the top of this. Now, one thing that I like to do with fish tacos too, I do like to add cheese, but I like to add feta cheese. And this is actually a Publix garlic and herb feta cheese. And this stuff pairs really well with fish tacos. And I think this particular flavor profile of this fish that we did, this is gonna go really good with it. Okay, now just a little bit of that lime pickled cabbage. I'm not gonna put a ton on there, but just enough to get some of that nice lime flavor. Especially since I don't have any lemon to squeeze over this. This will be a really great substitute for that. And finally, we've got some mango pineapple salsa, homemade by me just a couple days ago. Add a little bit of color, a little bit of sweetness to these tacos to blend with the spiciness of that Slap You Mama seasoning. Should be perfect. All right, guys, and there it is. Those are some fantastic looking tacos. I'm so excited to dig into these. I already know they're gonna be amazing, but I just like can't get over how good those look and how full they are too. There's a ton of fish in those tacos off of that one little hybrid bass, man. I mean, 2 of those, you could definitely feed a family of 3-4 people. All right, time for my personal favorite part of these catch and cook videos, part where we get to eat. Let's give this a shot here. Yeah, that's definitely top 3 new favorite fish to try. You know, they go out in the saltwater, at least in these parts here. I'm sure it's different elsewhere, but I imagine that the brackish saltwater, lifestyle of these particular fish in this area probably makes, that's part of what makes these taste so good the way that they do. But this tastes amazing, man. Really, really good fish. Yeah, made a quick work of that plate there. That's good stuff, guys. Definitely 10 out of 10. Easy 10 out of 10 on that fish. I like that a lot. Happily would go out and target that fish again. But I'm not kidding when I say that definitely rivals stuff like triggerfish, snapper, even sheep's head redfish. Like, that was really, really tasty. And I think a lot of it is definitely that preparation. As soon as you catch it, bleed it out, get it on ice. And the meat stayed pretty firm. Yeah, good stuff, guys. I liked it a lot. Hope you enjoyed the video. It was super cool going out and having the opportunity to catch that fish on a fly rod. First hybrid bass that I've ever caught, and that's the first time that I've really gone out and spent some time fly fishing in about 2.5 years now. So anyway, thank you guys. Appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next video.